Welcome back to Crash Underground. This is On the Line, the call-in where we rip open the things nobody else wants to touch. Tonight, mental health care in Ontario. The wards, the pills, the fear. We're talking forced treatment, people used as guinea pigs, families broken by side effects, and a system where, if someone with power doesn't like you, they can have you locked up. This is not conspiracy. This is on record. This is court cases. This is testimony. And this is blood on the floor of institutions that we're supposed to heal. We've got three voices on the line: Maya, a survivor of forced hospitalization and chemical restraints; Dr. Ahmed, a former psych nurse turned whistleblower; and Liam, investigative reporter who's followed the lawsuits and cover-ups. Together, we're going to dig into how truth gets buried in paperwork and bodies disappear into statistics. You're not ready, but you need to hear it. Let's start with a story. A man in Ontario, detained after a fight at a shelter. Days later, his family is told he died in medical distress after restraint. No charges. File closed. Case like this happened multiple times.
I lived that fear. They can call it an emergency and suddenly your body isn't yours. I woke up strapped down, sedated so heavy I didn't know if it was day or night. They told me it was for my own good. I remember the panic. You want to scream, but your tongue is numb. I lost weeks to those injections. They shoved forms in front of me. Papers already filled in. Like I gave consent
Restraints killing patients.
in advance, but I never did. That's not treatment. That's control. Every time. They switched my meds like socks.
That's not a nightmare, that's documented. And it leaves families with nothing but. I saw fear disguised as medicine. Admins fear lawsuits. Staff fear violence. So the answer becomes drug first, talk later. Patients got Haldol injections for yelling. Olanzapine for pacing the halls. Risperidone for arguing. I watched side effects stack up: tremors, obesity, diabetes, while doctors wrote stabilized in the file. And the truth? But questions. Maya, sometimes the meds weren't for the patient's good. They were for staff convenience. Exactly. And when I raised it, I got pulled aside. Ahmed, you want to work here, don't make waves. But how do you look at someone shaking? Drew, when you hear that, what comes up? And when you asked questions, Dr. Ahmed, you've been the patterns undeniable. Families suing over deaths during restraints. Class actions against risperidone and other antipsychotics for causing irreversible movement disorders in kids. Judges ruling that forced medication without proper consent is assault. One case, Oak Ridge in Penetanguishene. Patients subjected to treatments that were basically torture, drug cocktails, sensory deprivation, brainwashing techniques. Courts later called it abuse. And the kicker? It ran for decades under government watch. Yes. And pharma's role? Records show drug companies promoting antipsychotics off-label on the other side of those locked doors, encouraging wide prescribing. Patients in group homes, kids in care, easier to medicate than support. Billions in profit, silence for the rest. Exactly. The CIA's MKUltra program ran experiments here with psychiatric patients, without consent. Later, Oak Ridge ran its own behavioral. What did you see? Chemical straitjackets. Let's bring in Liam. You've dug through court file experiments. More recently, Health Canada had to pause psychedelic trials after complaints of abuse in MDMA therapy. So the idea that patients are never guinea pigs? That's a lie. I saw cases where people were detained for weeks, only for review boards to later rule it wasn't justified. But those weeks cost jobs. What do the papers say? So not just
Try this, try that. No explanation. I was a lab rat with a pulse. And the side effects? They don't care. You shake, you drool, you stop recognizing yourself. They call it adjustment. I call it losing my.
ruling, their life drained out and call that healing. And remember, most patients don't even know they can refuse. The law says you have rights. But inside those walls, rights are whispers. The system counts on silence. Mistakes, systemized abuse. This is the darkest corridor, the experiments. People want to believe that ended.
My humanity. That's the part that scars you. Knowing anyone, an angry neighbor, a pissed off cop, even family, can say she's unstable and suddenly your freedom's gone.
Jobs, apartments, custody of kids. Even when released, the stigma sticks. It follows you in every system, welfare, courts, housing. Ruling, their life drained out and call that healing. And remember, most patients don't even know they can refuse. The law says you have rights. But inside those walls, rights are whispers. The system counts on silence. With Cold War nightmares.